How you doing, Cam?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Should I look at you or at the camera?
It doesn't matter. I don't care where you look.
It's weird to stare at the camera.
Yeah,
Well, it's because such a small little device. Here, how about you just look at me over here?
that works for me.
Okay, so, I'm doing a report for class, and I'm just wondering if you would be willing, to let your kids play on their tablets. I mean, how do you feel about tablets in general? Do you like them? Just elaborate, go wild.
I think they're neat technology, fun little toys. And yes, I call them toys because most people play on them.
It's very true.
Just like your smartphones. A lot of games that people use, and you have it all the time. You can pull it out whenever you want and use it for what you need it for. Whether it be games to entertain yourself for a few minutes or notes or whatever else you're doing.
And that is totally understandable. I mean, I use my phone daily. I'm probably on there for 3 or 4 hours a day at least. But for children, how do you feel about tablets, games, basically for children? How do you feel like that affects them as a child?
I think as long as they don't do too much of it, it's fine. It helps a little bit with their hand-eye coordination. Figuring out how to work technology is always good, especially in this world. But like anything else, with my kids, too much is always a bad thing.
I think that's the same with all kids. How many hours of games would you say you play a day?
Me?
On average.
Yeah. On average, I probably play 4 or 5 a day.
Okay. So how much is too much for a child?
For a child, it's still growing.
Yep. 2 to 5, somewhere around
I
there.
honestly, our kids are allowed half an hour on the computer and half an hour on the PlayStation a day.
That's actually pretty reasonable.
And they can switch it off if they want and do an hour on one. So
Right.
they're granted an hour of game time a day. And they don't always use it. Sometimes they like to go outside and play.
Right. And I think that's completely fine. So I will mention church. I'm sitting in church and you're sitting there for 3 hours, kids are screaming and crying because they don't want to sit there and be quiet.
Well,
What are parents going to do? They're going to hand them a tablet. Do you feel like that's a good thing or do you feel like that's a bad thing?
depends on the activity on the tablet, but most of the time it's not a bad thing. I mean, what's the difference between coloring on a tablet and coloring on a book?
Very true.
I mean, it's a little bit different in technique, and the tablet stays inside the lines, but there's not much difference other than that.
Valid point. That's all I got.
All right.
You actually are